When you think about your future, you know what calls to you. Meaningful work, happiness, growth, and sharing these values with others. But how will you find all of that? There are many paths forward, including one you may not have considered. The military provides countless opportunities to pursue your calling, where you can be part of something bigger than yourself, while still being yourself, and having the future you want. You have a calling, we have an answer. Learn more at todaysmilitary.com.
You're listening to...
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul. Rise gets inside, lays it up and in. 15 points, 13 rebounds for Jason Tatum. Final seconds, Boston Celtics in their quest for back-to-back titles take their first game of these 2025 playoffs. Joe Mazzulla's team.
Playoff edition of They're Gonna Call It a Hard Foul. Once again, I'm Jim Quigley here with my brother Michael. Michael is in Massachusetts. I'm actually here in Orlando, Florida, on vacation, not to cover the Magic and the Celtics when they come here. But Mike, what are your we are Hard Foul. We're brought to you by the what, Mike?
Fans First Sport Network, bitch.
That's right. Mike, why don't you take it away? Give your opening thoughts, and I'll jump in.
Absolutely, and excuse me, everybody. Not feeling well, so coughing and stuffed up. If I sound really off this morning. My opening thoughts on the Celtics are a story of two quarters, right? The second quarter, Orlando really imposed their will on the Celtics defensively. Celtics kind of got really out of rhythm. Couldn't score. Orlando was in rhythm offensively at the end of that second quarter, hitting some threes, moving the ball well. Really the only time all game they moved the ball offensively. It gave the Celtics some trouble. Tatum and Porzingis were really struggling, and I think Orlando was up by 1 or 2 at halftime. And then in the third quarter, it was a complete opposite. Celtics really imposed their will on Orlando defensively, turning them over quite a bit, which was really impressive, and able to find some easier looks because they were playing with pace. So Orlando really controlled the pace. I felt like for the majority of that second quarter, Celtics were able to control the pace in the first and third, and were able to really take a big lead, and that was the game. And what I took from this first game is that Orlando wants to slow it down. They want to play physical. They want to defend that three-point line and take it away from Boston. They limited the Celtics impressively to only 37 three-point attempts for the game. And they only have offensively, they're just so limited in Orlando that Franz and Banchero can play great offensive games, and it doesn't matter because their role players are just so limited. And the Celtics really were intentional about not doubling these two rising stars. And I think that was a smart game plan. And I thought the Celtics defended the paint well with Porzingis in the game, something I'd like to see them clean up. So my third point is just cleaning up the offensive rebounds, which the Celtics did in the second half, but really struggled with in the first half against Orlando.
Yeah, so that was the one thing. I thought there were two things the Celtics could have come out in halftime and did differently. One was definitely the defensive class. Orlando really dominated that the first half on the offensive glass, and they ended up with some easy putbacks. And then the other was, I think you mentioned it well, was just playing with a little bit more pace. They don't have to become the Pacers versus Celtics and fly around. But they do need to take good looks earlier in the shot clock. I mean, Orlando wants to play like the Celtics. They have 5 guys that can switch, and they don't really have to double Tatum and Brown. And they feel like they can play 24 seconds worth of shot clock. And that happened a lot in the first half. I thought what you saw in the second half was Celtics got out and ran a little bit more. You saw a couple of transition threes from Holiday, and even when they were in their half-court sets, they didn't necessarily pass up their first open look. And I thought that got them better scoring opportunities. They were much more efficient team in the second half. they shot a considerable amount more threes, and even with the game out of reach in that second half. So I'd like to see them come out and play that way in game two to start. Because there's no reason to get in a rock fight with Orlando. Because Orlando just that's the only way they can win, like you said, Mike. And the other good point I thought you brought up is the Celtics refused to double either Banchero or Wagner. They put those guys 1-on-1, and that really helped them out, especially on the glass in that second half, because they weren't playing them 1-on-1 either with either Tatum or Brown. They were playing pretty much Wagner and Banchero with White and Holiday, almost like daring them just to shoot it every single time. So it's an interesting strategy. I still think this is going to be a pretty short series. You can see how Orlando could become a very good team in the future if they were able to add to this team offensively. But right now, they're so limited. And I do think, if you're the Magic, you have to consider getting Anthony more minutes. And I know that's going to hurt you defensively, and that gives the Celtics someone that they can attack. But I think the Magic found out, as long as the Celtics play with a little bit more pace, even if Orlando's playing good defensive basketball, they're going to find ways to get their points eventually. So you need to find a way to, if you're the Magic, get some better baskets, easier baskets, besides your two best players. So I wonder if you see more Anthony, maybe less Joseph, maybe less, KCP or some of these other guys, just so you can get into your sets a little bit quicker and you give yourself another offensive player. But even that's not going to be enough. But I tell you what, Mike, game two in the playoffs for the Celtics has always been an adventure. And I think if there's going to be one hiccup in this series, usually it happens in game two. So I'd love to see them come out intentional and kind of buck that trend, because it's going on a few years now where the Celtics seem to coast in game one, especially in the first round. And then game two, they end up laying an egg and the other team shoots like 95% from three. So it'll be interesting to see if, that trend continue or not.
Yeah, well, because Orlando with Bonchauer and Franz, they haven't won a road playoff game yet. So now they went 0-4 last year against Cleveland. They lost again yesterday. So, I mean, you want to continue that trend, that they're not serious yet by winning your home games, and they really haven't been close in any of these games except Game 7 last year in Cleveland. So, I was impressed with both Pablo and Franz. I mean, Franz obviously with that Euro step that he added to his game, pretty impressive. He got it on KP twice yesterday, and then Boncharo, if
he was quiet in the second half, though.
Yeah, if he consistently hits that 3-point shot, that is scary with his size and his ability to move. And once again, he had a big first half against the Celtics, and the Celtics adjusted by really playing more of Holiday on him. I thought something else that we could look at for game two is I thought Tatum settled a lot for threes yesterday. Orlando was really up in his face. They were playing, even when he had the ball, they weren't giving him space. I didn't see a ton of effort for Tatum to create space and drive and kick, as I've seen in the past. And so I'm looking for him to go to the basket more, because even with Orlando's size, there isn't a lot of shot blocking there. Wendell Carter is not somebody that I've always seen that is a rim protector. So I do think the drives are there to get to the free throw line. I think Tatum only shot, was it 6 free throws yesterday? I think he went like 2 for 6 or even 0 for 4. So
yeah, he had a rough game all the way around offensively. Maybe like to see him a little bit more on the block early in the shot clock, and kind of you can get your offense going around that as well. And he was so good in that mid game. He did start scoring a little bit in the fourth quarter, but rarely. And Brown scored a little bit in the third, but Brown, Porzingis, and Tatum all really struggled offensively. You were carried offensively by White, Holiday, and Pritchard. For the most
Yeah,
part, those guys really stepped up for you. Holiday was fantastic on both ends of
they
the
didn't
floor.
run anything for Porzingis, though. Typically at the beginning of these games, Porzingis is firing threes. They didn't go to him.
Well, they tried a couple times late in the second quarter, and the first, and they did a good job of just getting out on him. And Porzingis was a little hesitant to shoot over or shoot quickly. And Porzingis has a pretty quick release, much faster than Al Horford's. So I think he's just got to let it go. And that's what I mean, where these guys just, usually someone comes out and they put a little bit of pressure on the Celtics say, that's fine. We can move this ball and we can come at you with 2 or 3, or maybe sometimes 4 actions within the 24-second shot clock. And we'll bend you eventually and get a good shot. But Orlando's defense is really good. So you're not necessarily going to get a better shot. So if Porzingis, I think in this one, maybe hopefully they see this in the tape, they kind of see that, and he gets a little bit of rub and he lets it fly. I thought he hesitated just a bit in game 1. Mike, how concerned are you with Tatum's potential injury here? He said he was fine after the game. I usually decide I'm not going to be concerned unless I actually see something on the floor. He missed his 2 free throws following the injury, but I think he hit a 3 and a couple mid-range shots.
Yeah.
So it didn't look like it really affected him. At least I didn't think so after the injury all that much.
Well, I mean,
After
I
the
think,
fall.
yeah, I think we'll get a better read on it here in game 2 than immediately afterwards with the adrenaline pumping. That I'm always concerned with the wrist. I feel like the last 2 postseasons, he's re-injured that wrist. Well, re-injured it last year, and then the year before. It's definitely impacted his shooting in the past. So I think we're kind of in a wait and see. Certainly bad timing for this to happen again. It looked bad when he landed on it. And certainly he took a long time to get up. So did you think that was a flagrant foul?
I thought by the letter of the law, it could be now, because if you watch Caldwell Pope, he didn't go after the ball. He went to foul. So I don't think it should be a flagrant foul, but I think by the letter of the law in the NBA it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's hitting the lower part of his arm just to prevent him from getting to the basket. So that's not a play on the ball. I thought when Richard Jefferson saying he was just going up to block it, I understand where he's coming from, because in the old NBA, that's what that is. But I think in the league now, it's borderline flagrant. I don't agree with it. I want to be clear, but I think by the letter of the law, probably yes.
Yeah. I was surprised that it was a flagrant. I thought it was taking way too long.
Yeah.
Um, and I was a little hesitant to let Tatum play. I remember thinking, hey, you're up at this point, 16 or 17, like 6 or 7 minutes left here. You can close this out without him. But it's hard to take Tatum out of the games, and that's why I don't think we really have a good read on it until we see this next game and how it is a few days later.
I think
Hopefully,
I think the wrist is
okay.
wrist is a little bit different than an ankle. Like, I think you got a better idea of that thing is, going to be a problem. Almost initially after that injury, I like, you're not going to be able to grip things. You're not going to be able to fall through. And you'd almost hope that the swan goes down, the injury gets better. So my guess is none of those things happened, which I think is probably a really good sign. And maybe there's just going to be some soreness there. He's just already taped it up. So he's a tough guy, but it didn't look like anything really affected him. So hopefully I'm right, and he's just okay, because that's what I'm choosing to believe.
Well, if I'm Orlando, I'm testing that wrist. I'm slapping his wrist when I'm defending him, on the ball and off the ball.
Yeah, well, they're going to be physical. They have been, so I'm
Yeah.
sure that'll be part of it.
And that was an interesting part of the game yesterday. I didn't think it was officiated that great. I thought there were a lot of missed calls on both ends, but it definitely benefited the Celtics more. The Celtics shot a lot more free throws than Orlando. Um, yeah, Celtics going to pick up the pace. They really do. I thought they did a pretty good job in the third quarter, and I thought that was Holiday really leading the way there, um, getting some early threes early into the set or on a fast break. Um, and so that'll be an adjustment for game two. And I don't know. It doesn't feel like your typical blowout in the game one series for Boston because offensively they weren't efficient. So I kind of expect game two. Actually, the Celtics come out uh, really good. I expect this to be their best game of the series. And if they're gonna lose, I think they're gonna lose on the road because I don't think they played their best game, and I think they're gonna look at that tape and make a lot of adjustments and come out. When I think of Orlando, yeah, starting Cole Anthony, but if you're not starting Cole Anthony, I think that you have to get out of your ISO sets and try to get some early shots early into the shot clock too, and see if you can get Wendell Carter or Pope or somebody hitting some outside shots against Boston. Because
Yeah,
if you don't, KP's just going to play the paint and they're going to single cover these two superstars and you're going to turn into just ISO Orlando and it's not going to work.
yeah. I mean, I didn't think it was the Celtics' best game because of the first half. I thought the first half they really didn't play that well, and a lot of that was, I think, not really responding to Orlando's physicality early on, and kind of got um, you know, you played their style of play, which I think you articulated really well. I thought the second Celtics were really good. Um, I don't know. I mean, they went down one, they won by 17, so they outscored them by 18 in the second half. Most of that was the third quarter. And then, the last 4 minutes of the game where the Celtics just playing out the clock.
Yeah.
But once the Celtics got I felt like a lead in that third quarter. Unlike that second quarter lead, it just felt over to me. Well, with like 6 minutes to go in the third. It just didn't feel because of the way the Celtics were playing. There was
Yeah.
one player in particular that I thought really represented that, where the early on in the shot clock off Orlando make, they run a screen and roll with Porzingis. Porzingis runs the alley-oop, and because of the Magic's rotation, Porzingis misses the dunk, but Tatum's right there to clean up, and they get an easy two. And that's Celtics basketball, just attacking the team's weakness, going at them quick, and then getting other opportunities. And it just felt over. But what were you going to say, Mike?
Yeah. I think I didn't see a ton of, they were able to score and they were able to shoot early in the shot clock. I didn't see a ton of assists by the Celtics in that second half. And the other thing too, oh,
I'm here.
I hear some background noise, Jim. Was there somebody talking?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, the other thing I was going to say was that the Celtics superstars, particularly Porzingis and Tatum, I don't know what to expect from Brown in the playoffs, if I'm going to be honest, but
He was
particularly
real good in the third quarter.
he was.
Yeah.
Game to game, we'll see what he can bring us with that knee. I think game two is a guaranteed win for Boston because I just feel like Porzingis and Tatum are going to be showing up in different ways, scoring the basketball. And like I said, I think if the Celtics lose in this series, it's going to be a little bit different where the road Warriors are maybe going to lose on the road, and that'll be the game that they lose. Maybe it's like game three or game four. So, but if Orlando continues to play like this, yes, they can make it ugly, and defensively, they'll be great. But you scored 89 points yesterday. You held Boston 103, and you're only able to score 89. You're not going to win a game. You're going to get swept. So Orlando has to change the way they play, and that part of that is Pablo and Franz trusting their teammates a little bit too, because the ball does get sticky with those two. And as well as they played, and I thought they both were really good yesterday at both ends of the floor. They have to move the ball a little bit quicker there to get some shots up quicker in the shot clock against Boston.
Yeah. And, you're not going to see Tatum, Porzingis, and Brown go one for the whatever they were for the entire game from 3-point range. Tatum was the only one that hit a three, and he was like 1
They're
for
1
7.
for 15.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think you'll see that again.
I don't even
But
think Hauser got up a 3.
But the other good thing was a game like this. So you had a 1-point game at halftime. You controlled the game in the third. Then managed the game in the fourth, which I thought they did a really good job of doing with the lead. And then you didn't have to play Brown at all, not a minute in the fourth quarter, and then more rest for that. Whatever's going on with his knee. I tell you, Mike, I didn't notice anything to be concerned about during the game. I was watching for it. I thought his defense was pretty good. So I didn't see anything that would be a red flag on that end. His shooting still struggled, but that continues just to be a season-long thing with him. Did you see anything in the way he was playing that you said, oh, he didn't look right yesterday?
Yeah, I think there's a lack of confidence on the offensive end with him, not with shooting, but beating guys off the dribble. And that could be a knee injury thing, or that could just be Tatum and Brown both struggling with the physical defense that they got in that first half yesterday. But I didn't see them. Brown is.
I thought he imposed
Brown's,
as well in the third quarter.
but Brown's always been a pretty good playmaker, and I've seen in the past with him that he's able to take a guy off the dribble and make a quick decision that's the right pass. And for a while now, for probably a month now with this injury, I've really seen him stop short a lot in the paint, kind of hold on to the ball a little bit, or turn it over, not really know what to do with it. So I do think it's really still impacting him as far as maybe him trusting his ability to make those decisions right now because he's thinking about the knee. But I thought outside of the third quarter yesterday, when the entire team picked up the pace, he and Tatum weren't doing a great job of just taking their guys off the dribble a little bit and making that pass to get somebody open. I thought there was a lot of settling, or in Brown's case, not being a decision maker out there, or on trusting those skills to be a playmaker. So that's one area that I'm just continuing to look at it. That he's missing something, like he's either lacking it because of the injury, or he's not trusting himself because of the injury, like he typically would. He just doesn't seem himself to me. Like he doesn't seem like Jaylen Brown, that hungry dog that's out there that's a playmaker. And so I'm still waiting to see that.
Well, I would say that was a lot of Magic, especially in the first half. I thought the third quarter he imposed as well, and I thought he was very, very good. I thought he was the best player on the floor in the third quarter, on both ends of the ball. He played the entire third quarter too. I thought he was taking the ball to the basket. I thought he was cutting well. Assists are going to be down against a team like the Magic because they don't double. And so there's not a lot of freed up opportunities. The Celtics still manage 22 assists. The number you want to see against these guys for the Celtics is usually around 25. You're probably going to be below that most of the series because of the way the Magic defend you. But I thought I was pretty encouraged, especially with the third quarter on both ends of the floor, the way he was moving. But I did find it interesting. Now, he did go to the scorer's table with about 6 minutes to go, and it just wasn't a stoppage in play. And then the lead continued at 17-18. But Joe didn't put it back in. So there's still at least enough concern where if they can manage it, they got to manage it. But he looked better to me, just moving with confidence than what I thought I saw a few weeks ago. When it seemed like he was trying to hit that 65 game mark. So maybe that confidence and stuff, Mike, that you're talking about just comes back with time. But there's also the risk of, the wear and tear in the playoffs sets him back. We don't know exactly what this knee is, but at least for yesterday, I thought he looked like he was moving well. So hopefully that continues to be the case. Mike, the only last thing my takeaway on this whole series in this game, like this is a really good matchup for the Celtics to start off the playoffs with. If you've got a team like Atlanta or whomever, you're not going to have the same level of physicality, and 5 guys that can switch, in the problems that kind of cause you on defense, the crashing of the offensive glass with some success. I think this gets him ready for some of these more difficult series down the line. I think playing a team like this only helps you as you move forward. I tell you what, when when you get to the next series against the Knicks, it's going to feel like you're on vacation after playing these guys. But I think this is, as I was watching this yesterday, I was kind of thinking this is a good thing for the Celtics to start off with these guys.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. The way Orlando plays, the level of physicality, that's playoff basketball. And unfortunately, throughout these first rounds so far, we haven't seen a ton of it. We've seen teams really lay down and after the first punch, really. What are your thoughts on some of these games? I don't think it's been very good basketball. Hopefully it'll pick up in game two for these playoff series around the league.
Yeah, obviously, I thought the Denver Clippers game was fantastic. That was high level basketball throughout on both ends. Denver really, surprised me in a lot of ways. Um,
Oh,
they
Russell
looked,
Westbrook,
yeah,
Russell Westbrook experience on full display. Hits a
big time.
three, then at the end of the fourth quarter, doesn't know what to do with the ball, and then you're icing the game, and he's driving to the basket in overtime. It was,
Yeah,
and
full
then again,
display.
he's making offensive rebound after he's making
Yeah,
plays. He made a
and
ton of plays.
then throws a laser beam on a layup.
Yeah, yeah,
Doesn't even draw a rim on a fast break late in the fourth and ends up like 5 rows into the stands. So I thought that was pretty good basketball. And I know the other West games weren't particularly, obviously OKC. They're just going to coast past. Memphis is dead man walking. But I did think like you can see the potential for good series in the other two. The Lakers, the Wolves really showed me something. I didn't think they were going to really come to play last year. Anthony Edwards got owned by Luka, and good for him to come out and play the way he did and lead that Wolves team. So that's setting up to be a really, I think, long, good series. And then you texted last night about Houston's offense. If they could just make a few shots, I can't. They had so many wide open looks late in that game. I mean, how many wide open looks did Fred VanVleet just miss in the fourth quarter? How many layups did the Rockets just like blow?
always teammate coach teams. It's always like that.
Yeah, but you can't be responsible for the misses that are wide open. He's
Yes,
responsible for the sets.
which
If
they
they
don't
can
run
make
though.
if they can make some shots, you can see the problems that they present for the Warriors. They are just so much longer and athletic and just bigger. They're just way bigger than the Warriors are and way more athletic that if they can make a couple shots, I I changed my pick like I told you last night that I thought the Rockets are going to win. After watching last night, the inexperience, it's not going to be enough. The Warriors will win the series, but I think the Rockets can make it really interesting if they can just calm down just a little bit offensively.
Yeah, I mean Jalen Green only scoring 7 points isn't great. That doesn't help. 20 point a game scorer. Um, yeah, I think the Rockets they should win the series because they do have the length, they have more firepower, but I don't know. Steph Curry seems to just own Houston. He's kind of owned them throughout his career in these moments. He was hitting some wild shots last night. So we'll see. I'm still thinking Golden State's going to win that series too. I just think the presence of Jimmy Butler and Curry in these moments, especially when it gets close in the fourth quarter, you look at Houston, similar to Detroit. These young guys, do you trust them in the fourth quarter? And I don't. And I thought that's what we saw in the Knicks game. Detroit played well for 3 quarters and a few minutes into the fourth, and the wheels came off, and they just couldn't settle down. Um, they couldn't settle down the moment because they don't have the experience. And I do think that's a big factor in the playoffs with these young teams that when it gets close in the fourth quarter, you see some of them demons come back. And with both Houston and Detroit, these young guys have struggled in close games throughout their career so far, and they're going to have to get over that before I trust them.
Yeah, sometimes it just clicks, and hopefully it does, and it wasn't just the young guys missing shots for Houston. It was Van Fleet too. He must have had 4 or 5 just wide open, point blank looks from 3, and he bricked them. And they missed free throws as well, to your point, where it's young guys kind of holding the ball a little bit too tight. But if they could get past that, it's Golden State had a really tough time getting anything going outside of Steph Curry, and even some of Curry's shots are just like big time Steph Curry shots. The size was kind of eye opening. There was a few times during that game where it looked like Butler was going to have an easy layup or an easy kind of fadeaway, and the next thing you know, you have another. Feels like they have 5 or 6 guys on the Rockets with the wingspans that go to the moon, just kind of wipe away whatever look they had going. So we'll see. Any other series, Mike, that interest you?
Yeah, I still think the Milwaukee Pacers interest me. I think the challenge with the Pacers is that you don't have time to adjust to their pace. You have to be ready coming out. And that's something that a lot of these teams, including Boston, they struggle with. Either you're not adjusted to it until the second half, or really, you're not adjusted to it until a couple games in and it's too late. You got to come out and be ready for it. And Milwaukee certainly was not ready for that pace. And that's a little concerning. I'm interested to see what it looks like in game 2 with Lillard. But Indiana really controlled the pace of that game throughout. I don't think Milwaukee was ever really in it, if I'm going to be honest. And Kyle Kuzma certainly was not ready to go. So a little disappointed in some of these first games. LA, the Lakers, I think they just got blitzed. So I do still expect that to be a good series, but I'd be concerned if I'm a Milwaukee Bucks fan about if they can make this a long series or not.
Yeah, I think the Milwaukee Bucks fans should have been concerned back in November, because their season is ending soon. All right, that's pretty much all I got, and it's going to start getting busy here, so it might get noisy soon. So we'll talk to everyone soon, and have a happy Monday, everyone.
All right, see ya.